All right. Okay, there's my interpreter. All right, we're gonna try to go slow here. I didn't realize that there was an interpreter, so this may be a bit long. So I will, with an interpreter, so I will try to maybe cut some off here. But this is my talk today, Thailand's cybersecurity future. It's really everyone's future, but obviously you being Thai, you are interested in yours, all right? You're part of it. My name is Gregory Pickett. I think we're all describing a bit about ourselves. Hellfire Security. I'm part of the Cybersecurity Operations Group. So this is about cybersecurity. Right? This is a broad perspective. This is my perspective. And we answer or ask this question to answer it. How are we doing? Right? We want to find out how we're doing, see if we're doing okay, get better. All right? So how are we doing? Cybersecurity right now is a lot like this situation. Doesn't reach. Okay. Not very far laser. All right, so you have your stormtrooper there, looking for threats, looking for attackers. Right? Are you the droids that we're looking for? And of course, the hackers, as good as they are saying, no, these are not the droids you're looking for. These are not the threats that you think they are. So we're missing things. We're not doing so good. Turns out, people get owned. Those were the droids that we were looking for. Right? So there's some regrets. Room for improvement. So the question is, why? Why do we keep getting owned? Why do things get attacked? Why is it successful? Okay. This is really my perspective on the matter. Right? The problem, we don't understand the threat, at least not operationally. Right? We know what is done. We know that there's phishing. Someone talks someone into giving up a password. We know there's a SQL injection. But there's actually a lot more that's going on. We don't know how everything is occurring, from the SQL injection to the compromise to all the lateral movement. We don't understand and address that total picture. We're just buying solutions. We're buying the web application firewall, okay? Considering it done. Maybe adding some antivirus. Okay, we bought these solutions. We're going to hire some operators, like bus drivers, just to work the solution. Okay? We're not necessarily addressing the threat. Right? That's a very 2D or two-dimensional view. Isolated solution. You have your web application firewall, your firewall in front of it. Right? You have your intrusion prevention system, antivirus, all these individual people, all these separate people looking at things apart from one another, not seeing the big picture, not seeing the complete threat. Okay? So solutions don't see everything. They only see part. And it's rarely a meaningful part. It's kind of an echo, a shadow. You still need a person to look, to notice something, right? To find what's missing and put everything together. A person to address the threat. But we're not hiring those people. So we keep getting owned. It's a common problem. United States, lots of money, right? Lots of expertise, and lots of solutions, but still get owned. Back to what Anthem, a large insurance company, health insurance company, just got hacked. Businesses, government agencies, every week, every day. This is that 2D or two-dimensional view of the problem with that solution. All right, so there's an attacker. I like diagrams, by the way. I have lots of them. All right, so we're concerned. Let's throw up a firewall. Ooh, we still need to let 80 through. They still need web access. Okay? We're concerned, so we put up a web application firewall. Just put a solution in place. All right? Maybe there's a block, 2 blocks. According to the solution, we're done, right? 2 SQL injection attacks, they're blocked, and we're done. The operator, it's all he sees. He thinks you're protected. Well, what about the 3rd try? Maybe the 4th try. Evasion. Right around that solution. End result? Well, the solution only saw part of the attack. And since it only sees part of what's going on, it can be evaded. If you rely only on the solution, you get owned. It's just the way it is. Are we learning? Not exactly. Right? All right, now we're going to go ahead and buy APT. That will solve the problem. Advanced Persistent Threat. Let's put that box out there. Right, maybe we've got that. Let's go ahead and put a log manager out there. Let's put logs somewhere. We're finished, right? Or maybe a SEM. The SEM will tell us what to do. The latest craze is big data. Let big data figure it out. Right? Not a good way to go. Why care, of course? Anthem, you probably are not familiar with Anthem. It's talked about a lot right now because, of course, it's a US company. So it's over there, though. It's not here. Why do we care? Even if I was there, it's not my company. Right? It's because we're losing the battle. Overall, worldwide. We see it every day in the news. Lots of them. These are two significant ones. Target, guess what? It was PCI compliant. They were told that's all they needed. That's all they did. That's where they got owned. Sony Pictures. They had all sorts of solutions burnt to the ground. Wiper malware at the end of it all. After they had already owned the network, after they actually surmised or they guessed that the attackers knew the network as good, if not better, than the administrators. Right? Burnt it to the ground. Everything it got so bad they actually had to turn off the computers in the gym. So you will get caught up. These things spread. So there will be collateral damage. Right? You guys. Your accounts, right? Facebook, YouTube. These things get compromised. You paying a bill with True. Right? Doing some banking. At some point in time, those accounts will be grabbed. That information will be stolen. You will go offline. You can't pay your bill. Your ability to do things will be impacted at some point. And if you work for one of these companies, if that's your responsibility, you may not have a job. Or if it's a smaller company, you may not have a company anymore. It blows up, you go with it. Right? So it affects your money. And it affects your country. Okay? I don't know if I'm allowed to do this, but think about the United States right now with the Sony Pictures hack. First thing the United States did was go, North Korea. What happens to North Korea's internet for a couple hours? We're just guessing, of course, but it disappears. Right? They say it's retaliation. What happens with maybe Thailand? Gets in a fight with Cambodia. Right? Some disputes. Right? Maybe there's some interested a temple that they both claim. What if there's a fight? What if your internet disappears for a couple hours? It's going to impact you. Okay? So there's a way forward, though. Learn how it works, so you know when it's working, and you know that it's safe, presumably. Okay? Typical application activity. You're a Thai company selling Thai products. You should see connections from Thailand. Right? An understood customer base. Small HTTP requests. Gets, not real big. A little URL there. Right? With some headers. Small. Small reply. Even if you search a catalog, you are going to get maybe an index back, short list of all the items, and then maybe 10 or 20 of them, a page, some images, some script. It's an expected size. It's an expected size. Some database activity. That's between the database server and the web server. It's going to make that exchange. It's going to send that small index, those 10 or 20 items over. Some lookups on occasion. Yes, Microsoft software phones home. Every once in a while, it's going to look up Microsoft domains. It's maybe going to send a heartbeat. And it's kind of snooping on you, keeping an eye on you. What are you doing with the software? And then occasional transfers on the inside. Backups. Log files. Right? You see this stuff? It's normal. You're good. More of a three-dimensional view, looking outside that web application firewall, looking at all of the connections, all the different ways that an attack could show up. Right? So this is a normal operation. You learn how this works so you know when it doesn't. Warning signs. Connections from outside the customer base. What if you get connections from Korea? These are products for Thais. It's in the Thai language. Why would Koreans, I love Koreans, but why would they be looking through a product listing for Thai products? Makes me think, makes me want to look closer. A large or malformed HTTP request. Yeah, it's not very big. You have a very long, actually a very large and long request, a post, like a slow LoRa's attack. That's not normal. Right? That's a warning sign. Or malformed. You're searching for a product. Keywords. Samsung phone. If you have a lot of encoding, that's a warning sign. Or increased database activity. Maybe there are URLs being inserted into the records. That's a lot of activity, right? Maybe something's being deleted. It's a warning sign. Lookups are out of bounds. Microsoft.com, it's okay. Anything .co.th, that's okay. What about .cc? Right, very malware related, very funky. I don't know if there anyone out there that knows what funky means, but right? Strange. Or if there's transfers, actual file transfers from that web server out. Right? It's a warning sign. Or lateral connections. The thing is supposed to talk just to the database server or to an administrator. What if it starts talking to the management server, responsible for network configuration, directory server? Warning signs. Okay? So now as that person, stepping back, not relying on the solutions, these are the different ways you can detect these sorts of activities. You're looking at it completely, three-dimensionally. On that front attack there, you have the front side of that attack, the one you can, of course, go at it directly at the web server, or you can go at the router, but you have the network firewall there. Okay? As I said, each of these solutions comes up with like an echo or a shadow that gets your attention. Louder. Okay. That's not a problem I've had before. Usually too loud. All right, so you have foreign sources that may show up. Right? It's part of the picture. Look closer. Get all of it. Go to all these different solutions. See other things. See if there are other things that you can look at to tell you more about what's going on. Right? How about an unusual request? On the web application firewall, maybe there were 2 blocks. Well, look at the logs of the web server. Maybe there's a third that it didn't see. It didn't block. Okay, there's something strange in the log. That's definitely a problem. Maybe something that looks encoded, it's an evasion. Okay, that's why the web application firewall didn't see it. So you have to go beyond just one solution. You have to be looking yourself. Maybe some unusual lookups on the intrusion prevention systems, .cc. We're using a network behavior analysis tool at the 4, lateral movement, maybe some unusual database volume, spike in activity between the web server and the database server, unusual connections, unusual flows in and out. These solutions are going to miss things. All right? They're not going to be able to wake you up and say, you've got a threat. There's going to be echoes. There's going to be shadows. And the idea is you catch it somewhere along that way. You, not the solution. Because then you'll look and you'll see something's not right. You'll see a warning sign, and then you'll look. You will go beyond the solution, and you'll see the threat. You'll see the whole battlefield. All right. Now you can turn around once you see that echo, once you see that shadow, and you've put together and realize it's not just a ghost, it's a real attacker. You can then turn around and use the individual solutions, right, to address the threat. Block the attacker at the firewall. Maybe you see how the evasion was done in the web server logs. You can adjust the filters on the web application firewall to block attacks. Okay, you've gone to that web server and you've seen more than just the logs. You've gone ahead and you have noticed there's a back door. You can actually write a signature for the IPS to block access to that back door. Or, let's say you've seen some lateral movement. You've seen it touching other servers it's not supposed to touch. Maybe in the user community, you see something strange, you go back, you do some forensics, you notice a Trojan, you send up the Trojan to your antivirus vendor for a signature, right? You get the signature back, and then once you're sure you know everywhere this person has been, that you can see, You spread it out. You deploy it. Why? Because you don't have eyes and ears everywhere. And to get that coverage, get everywhere, where maybe he's been that you haven't seen. Clean up. Right? So this is you doing it, not the solution. Solution is just a tool. Okay? Some more examples. I'm going to go through all sorts of diagrams. I did tell you I like diagrams. Okay? So learn how it works so you know how to break it. Typical network architecture, domain name system, right? So the assets can find each other. Put in syslog for recording network activity. Put up firewalls around assets. Insert intrusion prevention systems. These are what people do, right, when they're setting up a network. And then watch for alerts. We're going to break that, right? So you have a kind of an old school look at a network. You don't necessarily have 2 firewalls for the DMZ anymore, right? I'm going to call it enemy cyber command right now, where all the syslog activity goes to. Domain name system, maybe a database server, backup server. You learn it so you can break it. Okay? And the number 1 there, poison syslog. You know about syslog, you know it's not authenticated. Don't have to prove that it's a valid message. Also UDP, meaning I can lie. There's no return message. I can lie, I can say I'm someone else, I can spoof. Right? And because you're poisoning and not flooding, no denial of service protection is going to go off. They look at big floods from maybe TCP, TCP-SYN, huge flood, ICMP, UDP, not little drip, drip, drip. What you're doing is you are putting in lots of noise. Okay? You can do 2 different ways. One is you can bury them so that they don't really see you because you're underneath all of the other shadows that you're creating. Or you can freak them out. Okay? That's a little more English there. It might be not so well known. You can scare them. You can tell them, at least they think there is, a password guessing attack over here when you're over there. Right? Not paying attention. Then you can go about hijacking DNS. Because while they're distracted, maybe pull out a 0-day. Some people here, I understand, make 0 days. But that brings system, the application, maybe you phish some credentials. Maybe you compromise the development server that, you know, you don't care about that. But maybe it's trusted. Maybe it has credentials that are shared. Go and you hijack the DNS. You change the DNS resolution so that rather than the backup going to the backup server, it goes to a bot, something under your control. Once the backup's done, you release the resolution, you reverse it, so that, well, basically the backup just disappeared. Unless they have very verbose logging on their internal DNS, they won't know. Right? They'll just know a backup went off, there's an entry for it, but not at the backup server. There's no backup there, it just disappeared. All right, so it's pretty nice. So that's what I would do. Right? You learn about these things so you can break them. Of course, you can learn how it works so you can keep it working. Typical network operations, switching and routing, firewalls, domain name system, syslog. Right? So on the flip side, if I was going to protect something like this, I would tweak the denial of service just a bit so that maybe I had a low threshold, a very low threshold for syslog. Right? Wouldn't necessarily have it blocked, just divert it because there is genuine surges in activity. Right? But if something increased in activity, we saw a lot more syslog activity, I'd want to look at it. It's unusual, it's kind of a warning sign. Right? I'd look at the time to live. Right? If our sensors are, well, they're Linux-based, which probably they are, then let's say they have a 64 default time to live. They're 4 hops away. All the UDP packets coming in should be at 60. They have a 60 TTL. What if they have 58? What if they have 56? That means it's coming in from outside the network. Then I'd block it. Then I'd be looking at all those other solutions. How about something that checks resolution regularly for critical assets? Lets us know when resolution no longer matches what it's supposed to match. I change it, someone else changed it, and you go and you look at the DNS server, you see it. Maybe you can stop it. You can reverse it before the backup kicks off. If not, maybe you have some zone-based rule sets. Right? Keeps any sort of movement this doesn't reach. No? Oh well. It keeps the backup going from the desired location to the redirection. Right? You may say to yourself, well, what about the external firewall? Right? Well, what if the bot is inside the network? Right? Now, zone-based rule sets, what they do is they keep traffic from flowing outside zones that you expect the traffic to go. So that the traffic doesn't leave that zone that the backup server and the database server are in, or the traffic only flows from the database server zone to the backup server zone. Right? So if you have a zone-based rule sets, blocks it. Kind of a fallback. Okay? So you learn how it works so you know how to protect it. Typical network protections and detections, zone-based rule sets, upstream flood mitigation, a little bit of a tweaking to the standard denial of service protection, monitor critical resolution, and monitor flows overall. Right? If you are out of bounds, I want to know. Ah, yes, intelligence, information gathering, if you will, on a larger scale. Business, they want to know what you're buying, what you might buy. Governments, well, they just like to look at you. Okay? So big data center, right? Using the application programmer's interface, set up shop. Okay? Learn how these things work. So then you know what the requirements are. Typical deployment, server farm, large data centers, power and cooling facilities, right? A large pipe network, right? Large network connection. Contracts with providers. You have to sign up for that Facebook or the Instagram API. And of course, a large support staff. Okay? There's some problems here. You have a massive building now with your name on it and a pipe that is constantly talking to Facebook, constantly talking to Instagram. I wonder what you're doing. Right? And of course, you have to sign up. To get the key, you have to sign up. You have to identify yourself. So they're watching. Hey, you're violating terms of service. Don't do that. Right? Now, I'm not saying I would do this. I'm not saying that I agree with it and I would say that, yes, I'm going to do this. But if I was going to do this, I would probably do it a little bit differently. Right? A little bit differently. Okay? I'll tell you why, first off. Learn how it works so you know its limits. Typical limitations. It's noisy, draws adversaries, draws opponents, necessitates relationships and oversight. Difficult to defend. You can't pick that building up and move it in the event of a problem. That's a big building. And it's expensive. So as I said, right, I'm not advocating this sort of thing, you know, eyes on you. But if I was going to do it, I would do it a little bit differently. I like botnets. Right? Operate from anywhere, inexpensive, quiet, mobile, and they look just like you. Right? I would do it a little differently. So this is why you learn these things. Okay? That's a little network reconnaissance right down there. Okay? Now, if we continue to put these products first, we only see what they see. We saw what happens when you just have the web application firewall. It sees 2-block SQL injection attacks. Says, we're fine. Right? You only see what they see, then you have no option but what the solution gives you. Right? You will always find out afterwards, not during, but afterwards, after things blow up, after the database disappears. Right? Instead, we need people. We need you. Okay? We don't need operators of solutions that only see what the solution sees, the one isolated area, one isolated part of the enterprise or the country. Right? We need commandos. People that see the whole battlefield. Actually, I believe he needs it. Where'd he go? He needs commandos. Yeah? So, being a commando, how do you move beyond the solution? How do you see that battlefield? Right? That's why we're here. Yeah? Now, we're not the guy in front. We're the guy in the back. My personal story to let you know how I came to these conclusions, how it's entered my mind, and why I feel the way I do about these sorts of things. I started in application security, putting in the required pieces. I implemented solutions, pretty standard controls, file permissions, operating system permissions, application configurations, role, separation of duties, technical controls to make sure that things are strong, that all the parts are there, that they don't, as they work, open up new gaps, expose you to risks. Then I moved into network security. Operations, I actually had to use them. I was working for Abbott Laboratories, and I became responsible for 220 sites worldwide. That's a lot. Same as a small country. And I saw that the solutions weren't working. Right? Using the solutions, either in a control perspective or monitoring, they didn't show me what I needed to see. Right? I saw part of it, but not all of it. Not enough to explain actually what happened, not only in the attack, but to the target. So I had to look behind the solution. I had to look for myself. Right? And one solution was never enough. Right? It never told the whole story, nor did it give me the option for defending myself. So the IPS sees it. How is it going to help me with the compromised host? Right? I had to go somewhere else. I had to address it myself. Right? Every event that showed up, I collected data from all the different solutions. I put it together myself. I changed the solutions when necessary to provide what was needed, or I added my own, right? Maybe some open source. I got the data that I needed to fill in the big picture. What else happened after those two were blocked? Did anything else occur? Look at those logs. Maybe we saw some unusual DNS activity. What's on that host? Right? Where did he go after he looked that up? What happens after you look that up to you? Right? Events that I encountered, the whole range of things. Information gathering, host discovery, port scan, service probes, the usual. Not quite as straightforward as you would think. We would see these because we would have not denial of service. We would have threshold alerts, an increase in the number of denies on the firewall. We would spike. Right? We'd look at it, we'd see the flags. We'd see, okay, it's a SYN scan, right? Stealth scan. Network attacks. We had attacks on our mail relays. Someone in Russia, go figure, was blasting our mail relays with spam. They had a neutral reputation. They looked fine, so nothing did anything, except our mail relays were going down. They're being pounded. Had to defend against that. Denial of service attack. Now what you think? Was not a flood. Not all attacks are floods. Denial of service. This was a memory leak in the load balancers. Right, so kind of application layer. Took them down. Had to defend ourselves against that. Evil twin. Evil twin. Wireless access point. Server-side attacks. This one here, password guessing from a botnet, was weird. This was before you'd see anything about it online. We were seeing password guessing attempts on our border switches that, well, they were in order. So someone in Kazakhstan was using a password A. It begins with A. Someone in France was using the next letter in the alphabet, B and C. So it was very weird to see. But you put it together and you realize it's a botnet. It's coordinated. FTP password guessing. Part of going and investigating is not just finding out you've got a confirmed incident, but weeding out the false positives. Sometimes it's an incident, but it's a benign incident. Someone retired an FTP server, not from service, but just taking care of virus signature updates. But the virus clients didn't know that. They are still trying to log into that server. So it looked like a password guessing attack. You have to figure out what's going on. According to the solution, password guessing attack, kill all those clients. No. Those were our guys. We just had to fix it. Updated the FTP server, everything was fine. Client-side attacks, phishing, very difficult. Google Documents were used in business there. So you could see that link. They clicked on it, and they filled in their passwords. Not good. But when it turned around and we actually had to resolve it, we couldn't block. Not only was it convincing, but we couldn't block Google Documents because it's a used business process. Lots of different ways we had lots of different methods we had to use to defend ourselves. Worms in email. Open that attachment, not a good idea necessarily. Right? You had to go look through the headers, find out where it came from. Right? This was bouncing around the office. We had to figure out who was infected by checking out the headers, seeing where it was mailed from, who sent it, go in their system, clean, and then go back further from them to the next system, and next system, and next system. That was not fun. PO overlapping header. We had an IPS machine. Knocked down 2 exploits. We're done. Not exactly. I actually went ahead and did some sandboxing. I opened up the same page that they did, looked at the script. There were 5 exploits. Only 2 were seen. What happened with the other 3? Downloads. All right? Antivirus caught it, right? No. Antivirus didn't do anything. But on a hunch, we decided to run a full system scan. Sometimes you get different results. From on access, the full system scan caught it. So then we knew all we had to do was kick off full system scans, and wherever that went, we'd be okay. Also, we have some compromised systems, lots of things happening. Botnets out there, obviously. Abnormal behavior. Okay? The only DNS resolution we should see is to our own internal DNS servers. We should not be seeing someone on our network trying to resolve outside. Not a client, especially not to China. Worms on the network, these are long, long stories. I won't go into them. One, I can't talk about the covert channel. Rogue systems. Plug something in, contractor does, it goes off. We see it on the perimeter, freaking out the IPS. We have to track it down, find out where it's been, what it's been doing to its neighbors. Okay? Lots of different things. Along the way, I had to learn things. ICMP, TCP/IP, network function, switching, routing. I had to learn how these things work. I had to learn how it was supposed to work and why it wasn't working, why it was different, and then find out what the difference was. Okay? Controls, proxies, antivirus, endpoint management, popular services, so important. Learn HTTP, SMTP, how the messages are sent, what messages are sent, payload and content, web pages, email messages, how they're constructed, how they're processed. Okay? Learn all that stuff. Now I was able to, well, I knew what normal was for the protocol, for the device, for the exchange. This is what this is all building to, is learning what's normal. So you know what is not normal, what you need to look into. Peers, between peers, the activity between peers. Processes between systems. Payloads, what shouldn't be there. Okay? Solutions now were tools. Right? The firewalls, intrusion prevention systems, network behavioral analysis. Right? Are also means to control, to stop activity. Firewalls, again, intrusion prevention systems. Proxies. Compromised site, block it at the proxy. Antivirus. Okay. There's some bonuses along the way. This is where I get to kind of show off a bit. Right? Talk about exciting things, but this is really more about motivating you. You know, as you put things together and you understand more, you start to see things that maybe no one's talked about before. And you say, I'm going to share this. You know, what brings me here today. Okay. Forward scanning without sending packets. Right? You talk about different ways of using the network, different ways of seeing the network. Right? Lots of ways to discover, scan, and even fingerprint hosts without actually having to talk to them. You get to skip all the information gathering stuff, jump right to attack. A lot of the detection happens at the information gathering phase. You're noisy, you're figuring things out, easy to see. If you jump to the end, it's kind of too late. The system gets owned. Right? You know, some cases you're seeing the versions of software. You're being told where the management interface is. All right, come get me. Okay. It was Defcon 19.7, Hackcon 7, Brucon 4, paid airfare, hotel, kind of like a mini vacation. Okay. We had this group Nmap, more on the active side. You can see I specialize in the network, this network all the time. Okay. Packet normalization. Active scanning goes on. How we figure out what system you're running is we send it a message and we see what kind of message comes back. Okay. What if we made all the messages the same coming back? So you do that. You put that, something like that on the switch. You put it in a Linux kernel module. Everything starts to look alike. Now you can't scan, you can't fingerprint. Anybody? Okay. More paid vacations. You know, things grow. You understand more. You build, and you'll build. You learn more about what's possible, how much further you can go. Right. I actually didn't, I'll let you know right now, I didn't know anything about software-defined networks before I started. I knew nothing about software-defined networks before I started. But I said, what's that? I had a question. Right? Very easily, you apply what you already knew to the new situation. You can discover, identify, and manipulate software-defined networks. That turned out to be rather easy, especially given a 0-day. Right? Defcon, BlackHat, more mini vacations, right? Some articles on the 0-day, and then I'm going to Silicon Valley. Right? Someone liked my work. They're going to take me out there and do some work there for them. Related, of course, to software-defined networking. Pretty neat. Right? So there are bonuses to all this. There's fun things you can share. We're here today doing stuff like that. Okay? Am I talented? No. No special talents. I was just curious. Just wanted to know. I had a question. Okay? First things first, you have to learn how these things work. You have to build them. You have to do something with them. Okay? A lot of you are here in this position, or have been recently. Books. Read. Right? You've done this. Learned about networks and infrastructure, applications and supporting systems, dabbled in web development, looking at exploitation a little bit. Go further. Right? Start building things. Switches and routers, put on a server. Don't just ping it. Right? If you've done something like GNS3, don't just ping it. Make it work. Put a file server on there. Use it. How do you know it's any good until you've used that network? Domain name server, logging, capture the events, and then set up some application, do something fun. My personal favorite, put a game server on there. Right? That'll put it to work. Maybe do a phone app that consumes some information from a server on the network. Use your wireless in the room, the home, and then a log management system. See what's going on. What is being reported? Between the time you click on a link and you get the web page, there's about 100 things that happen in between, a lot. Right? Logs will show you a little bit more about what's going on. Read the logs. Understand the logs. Okay? Thailand. How does it fit into all of this? Right? Great talent. I know many of you out here, lots of great talent. My opinion, this is just my opinion, it goes unused. You know, I think that you're underappreciated. You're in a unique position, though. Once again, my opinion, I think that Thailand is just beginning in cybersecurity, putting things together. I think a lot of you already understand what needs to be done. It's getting others to listen. Right? So that means there's great opportunities for you because your leadership will be key. Be that person. Right? Avoid the same trap as the United States and other Western European countries. Right? Put people first. Put you first. Solutions come later. Pick out the solutions yourself for the threats that you see for the whole of the battlefield. Right? People first, solutions second. Right? That's it. Thanks for coming. Are we doing questions now or later? Doing now. Okay.
ถ้าเผื่อมีใครมีคำถามนะครับก็ถามได้เดี๋ยวผมจะแปลให้นะครับมีใครมีคำถามไหมครับก็มีใครมีคำถามไหมครับถ้ามีคำถามยกมือเดี๋ยวทางทีมงานจะเอาไมค์ไปให้ครับ
Easy.
Any questions มาลุกหน่อยครับ
Uh, can you have explain the concept of your work, the scan port without sending the packet, right? Your work, the scan. Yeah.
Yeah. Really, what I had begun seeing in the enterprise were a number of services running on the system, using protocols that were advertised.
Yeah. The question behind that is, it will be too complex for the. I mean, when they have many hop or many subnet, uh, it will be hard to find what the protocol.
I think that when you talk about a corporate environment, and the problem
Yeah,
was
yeah,
that these were designed, these protocols were designed for the home, but people tried, companies put them into enterprise products. And when these things are on the enterprise, and you've got insider threats and you've got systems going outside the network, you don't want advertising. So the challenge in the corporate environment is, one, being aware. A lot of these things weren't actually in the documentation. And really, when you talk about the corporate environment, you talk about standards. And so it's a matter of, we configure the one box that's safe, turns all this stuff off, right? And then you roll that out. You can keep track of it. PMAP has a function that I haven't really talked much about. You can actually put it as an agent on a system. So if you want to put it in different subnets, because maybe you can't get a standard, you can't get, or you've got 10,000 machines already there, right? You can't just do them all over again. You could put PMAP as an agent to listen, to pick up, and actually can send a syslog. So you can collect all that information from many different subnets and track it in a central location with syslog.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
ก็เมื่อกี้คุณเกรกก็อธิบายเรื่องงานของเขานะฮะที่ไปพูดใน BlackHat นะครับก็เกี่ยวกับเรื่องการสแกนพอร์ตโดยไม่ต้องส่งไม่ต้องสั่งส่งแพ็กเกจนะฮะหลักการก็คือเราต้องดักฟังข้อโปรโตคอลปกติที่เราใช้งานกันเนี่ยมันมีการ advertise message อยู่แล้วเราแค่พุทตัวเซนเซอร์เนี่ยไปวางตามจุดที่เราสนใจแล้วก็ดูพฤติกรรมที่มันเปลี่ยนไปนะฮะไอ้เซนเซอร์พวกนี้มันจะส่งข้อมูลไปที่ไอ้ตัว syslog server อันดับแรก enterprise ต้องรู้ก่อนว่าคุณแต่ละจุดเนี่ยมันควรจะมี message อะไรผ่านบ้างถ้าเผื่อมันมีสิ่งที่เป็น anomalous ที่เราสิ่งที่ผิดปกติที่ไม่ได้เกี่ยวข้องที่เราเปิด service ไว้ก็เราจะรู้แล้วมีสิ่งผิดปกติอยู่ใน network เราก็อาจจะเกิดเหตุการณ์อะไรขึ้นประมาณนี้ครับ
That was about right.
I have one more question right here. First of all, thank you so much for your very informative briefing. You talk about the future of Thailand, and I'm not sure you know how much you know about Thailand, but when you touch about this topic, I just want your idea on what should be the role of Royal Thai Armed Forces for the future of Thailand. Could you tell us?
The role of the armed forces? That's why I always stress my opinion. I don't want to make anyone mad, especially not the Royal Thai Armed Forces. You know, the thing of the matter is infrastructure is so important to all of us. And really, the Royal Armed Forces are the only ones capable of having a firm grasp on everything. I'm a big advocate of when you don't have to not have government, involvement. I'm more of a libertarian, if you know the term. But they're the only people that really can address it countrywide, and especially from a cyber warfare perspective. At a certain point in time, things are going to escalate beyond your ability to protect yourself. You will need, you're going to need them. They're a good partner.
That's what I believe, and you talk about many things that we need to do in the future, and I believe in the teamwork and of all the Thai people, and also lots of people right here, and thank you though, and
Sorry, I didn't know that was the colonel. Got the lights.
all right, thank you. Thank you for your presentation too. Very nice.
โอเคนะครับก็คือคุณเกรกก็บอกว่าทางกองทัพก็ต้องมีส่วนช่วยสนับสนุนนะแต่ว่ามันเป็นงานที่ใหญ่มากเลยการป้องกันประเทศไซเบอร์บอลแฟร์นะครับก็เป็นงานที่ภาคทหารยังทำคนเดียวไม่ได้เราต้องการกองหนุนอย่างคนปกติทั่วไปด้วยครับเหมือนที่เขาพูดในสไลด์ว่าต้องการ people ครับต้องการคนจากภาคที่ไม่ใช่ทหารอย่างเดียวครับมีคำถามอีกไหมครับขอไมค์ด้านบนด้วยครับด้านบนครับที่ยืนขึ้นครับคำถามนี้ได้คำถามสุดท้ายนะครับ
Okay. My question will start with, as you may know, the corporate and enterprise-wide or even the country, we all have a lot of people and users who use it. And the thing is, the requirements or the service always keep changing. So how we determine the standard or the things that we use to suspect the unusual? I mean, how we define normal and how we suspect abnormal?
It's a really good question, and it is up to the company or the organization because no one knows you as well as you do. No one knows your business, no one knows your systems. Standards are a good starting place, but they're not the end because there's no way for one organization to know you completely. And not only that, but you can't make one standard for everybody, what's normal. But the people in the organization have to look at their own systems and start to profile them. Have to inventory, and this is also where some standards come in where they help out a lot. They make you do things like take inventory and find out what systems you have, what software, and what your network looks like, and use that as a baseline. Baselining is very important.
นะครับ
Thank you. Thank you very
ครั
much.
บ
Yeah.
เดี๋ยวคำถามนะครับเมื่อกี้ที่ถามมานะครับก็คือว่าเนื่องจากระบบในองค์กรต่างๆเนี่ยมันมีความซับซ้อนแล้วก็เปลี่ยนแปลงไปได้เรื่อยๆนะครับคราวนี้ปัญหาก็คือเราจะรู้ได้อย่างไรว่าเน็ตเวิร์กพฤติกรรมในเน็ตเวิร์กอันไหนที่มันเป็นพฤติกรรมที่ปกติและผิดปกตินะครับคุณเกรกก็เลยตอบว่าเรื่องนี้เป็นคำถามที่ยากเหมือนกันแต่ว่าน่าสนใจนะครับก็คือไม่มีใครรู้ดีเท่าตัวคุณนะครับไม่มีใครรู้ดีเท่าองค์กรคุณสิ่งที่คุณจะต้องทำในการแก้ปัญหาเหล่านี้คือคุณอันดับแรกคุณต้องสร้างนะฮะฐานข้อมูลนะฮะเกี่ยวกับระบบของคุณไว้ก่อนทำเอกสารเกี่ยวกับข้อมูลของคุณก่อนเพื่อเป็นพื้นฐานว่าระบบของคุณประกอบด้วยอะไรบ้างมีอะไรคุยอะไรกันบ้างอะไรอย่างเงี้ยครับก่อนแล้วจากนั้นค่อยวางมาตรฐานในการจัดการระบบเหล่านั้นนะครับแต่หลักๆก็คือต้องมีinventory ของข้อมูลระบบก่อนไว้เป็น baseline ครับก็วันนี้ก็เซสชันนี้ก็คงจบเพียงเท่านี้ครับขอให้ทุกท่านให้เสียงปรบมือกับวิทยากรด้วยครับขอบคุณครับ